Imagine sitting on the edge of your seat, engines roaring like thunder, when suddenly, the unthinkable happens. A Formula One car traveling at over 300 kilometers per hour crashes violently. Tires fly, parts scatter, and for a moment time seems to stop. Formula One, while exhilarating, is a sport where the line between glory and tragedy is incredibly thin. In this video, we'll dive into the 10 worst accidents in Formula One history. These aren't just tales of twisted metal and high-speed crashes, but stories of lives forever changed. Stay until the end, because the last accident on this list is a real game-changer. A moment that transformed F1 forever. We'll explore what happened, how the drivers dealt with it, and most importantly, how these events shaped the future of the world's most prestigious motorsport. Formula One officially started in 1950 as a global championship aimed at finding the best drivers and teams on the planet. But extreme speed and cutting-edge technology came with a high price. Safety was something that evolved slowly, and the early years of Formula One were filled with brutal accidents. The cars were practically bombs on wheels, built with very little protection for the drivers. Only after numerous fatal accidents did safety become a real priority. The development of better helmets, safer cockpits, and escape zones on tracks were just some of the responses to this urgent need. The 1960s and 70s were particularly grim. Drivers raced with the knowledge that they could lose their lives at any moment. The phrase, "drivers racing with one foot in the grave," describes this era well. The death toll was staggering, and every season, the risks seemed to grow. It was a time when fans saw their heroes both on the podium and at funerals, creating a dangerous allure around the sport. But it was this very danger that pushed for fundamental safety changes that continue to save lives today. Before we dive into the details of these devastating crashes, we need to understand the context. Formula One wasn't just a race, it was a battlefield where life and death were always close companions. And now, let's get straight to the core of this story, exploring the 10 most terrifying accidents in the history of Formula One. 10. Niki Lauda, Nürburgring, 1976. On the infamous Nürburgring Nordschleife, legendary driver Niki Lauda suffered a crash that nearly claimed his life. His car hit a barrier, immediately bursting into flames. Trapped in the fire, Lauda inhaled toxic gases, and his face was severely burned. Fellow drivers heroically pulled him from the wreckage in one of F1's most dramatic moments. Incredibly, Lauda returned to racing just 42 days later, a recovery that defied all expectations and cemented his status as a living legend. Number 9. Mark Donohue, Österreichring, 1975. Mark Donohue, a talented American driver, lost his life during practice for the 1975 Austrian Grand Prix. Donohue crashed at high speed, and while he appeared to be unharmed at first, he later suffered a fatal head injury. He slipped into a coma and died a few days later. His death highlighted the importance of immediate medical care for internal injuries and brought attention to the need for safer racetrack designs. 8. Ronnie Peterson, Monza, 1978. At the 1978 Italian Grand Prix, Ronnie Peterson was involved in a multi-car crash right at the start. His car burst into flames, and although he was rescued, Peterson suffered severe leg injuries. Initially, it seemed he was out of danger, but complications during surgery led to his death the following day. This incident led to a re-evaluation of safety measures during race starts, particularly at high-speed circuits like Monza. 7. Jules Bianchi, Suzuka, 2014. Jules Bianchi's accident was a brutal reminder that, despite all the improvements in safety, F1 remains dangerous. During the Japanese Grand Prix, under wet conditions, Bianchi lost control of his car and collided with a tractor that was removing another crashed vehicle. Bianchi suffered severe head injuries and remained in a coma for months before passing away in 2015. His death was a turning point for F1 safety, leading to the introduction of the Halo, a device designed to protect drivers' heads. Number 6. François Cevert, Watkins Glen, 1973. François Cevert was a rising star, destined to take over from Jackie Stewart as the lead driver for Tyrrell. However, during practice for the 1973 United States Grand Prix, Cevert crashed violently into the barriers. The injuries he sustained were fatal, and he died instantly. Severt's death deeply affected Stewart, who had already decided to retire. and the Tyrrell team, which lost its brightest talent. This accident underscored the perils of motorsport, even for the most promising drivers. 5. Tom Pryce, Kyalami, 1977. The accident that claimed Tom Pryce's life is one of the most gruesome in F1 history. During the South African Grand Prix, Pryce was speeding down the track when a marshal, running across to attend another incident, was struck by his car. The marshal was killed instantly, and the fire extinguisher he was carrying hit Pryce, killing him on the spot. The horrific nature of this accident sent shockwaves through the sport and reinforced the need for stricter control over marshals' movements during races. 4. Roger Williamson, Zandvoort, 1973. In a tragedy that exposed the fragile state of safety at the time, Roger Williamson lost his life in a horrific crash during the 1973 Dutch Grand Prix. His car flipped over and caught fire, while disorganized and ill-equipped marshals looked on helplessly. Fellow driver David Purley made a desperate and heroic attempt to save Williamson, but it was in vain. This accident is remembered as one of the most painful in F1 history due to the sheer helplessness witnessed during the disaster. 3. Gilles Villeneuve, Zolder, 1982. Known for his aggressive driving style, Gilles Villeneuve's career came to a tragic end during qualifying for the 1982 Belgian Grand Prix at Zolder. Pushing to improve his time, Villeneuve collided with Jochen Mass's slower car. The impact was catastrophic, launching Villeneuve from his car and scattering wreckage across the track. Sadly, he did not survive the accident. Villeneuve's death shocked the motorsport world and highlighted the ongoing dangers in F1, even as safety measures were gradually improving. 2. Roland Ratzenberger, Imola, 1994. In the same tragic weekend that claimed Ayrton Senna's life, Roland Ratzenberger also lost his life. During qualifying for the San Marino Grand Prix, his car suffered a front-wing failure, causing him to crash at over 300 km/h. Ratzenberger died instantly, and his accident served as a warning of the urgent need for safety reforms in Formula One. Senna's death the next day only intensified the call for change, marking Imola as a dark chapter in the sport's history. 1. Ayrton Senna, Imola, 1994. Perhaps the most iconic accident in Formula One history, the tragedy that claimed Ayrton Senna's life at the 1994 San Marino Grand Prix was a moment that stopped the world. On the 7th lap, Senna, who was leading the race, lost control of his car at the high-speed Tamburello corner, crashing into a concrete wall at over 300 km/h. Although medical teams arrived quickly, Senna could not be saved. The impact of the crash was not only technical, but also deeply emotional for the entire sport. Senna was a global icon, and his death brought about a new era of safety in F1, with drastic reforms to both tracks and car designs. This remains one of the most traumatic and transformative moments in motorsport history. These accidents deeply marked the history of Formula One. Each one brought painful but necessary lessons that pushed the sport to evolve. This video is dedicated to the memory of all the heroes who have left us in Formula One. Their passion and courage will forever inspire us. Though they are gone, their legacy will live on in the hearts of fans and in the history of the sport. See you in the next video. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel